Mondays with Mike. Big, beautiful breakup. Copyright, not really copyright, but NBC News called it that. Trump threatened to take away Musk's subsidies. Then Musk said Trump was in the Epstein files. These were tweets or probably or social media posts. I hope we could just call some kind of social media post tweets, given that it's allegedly no longer Twitter.
Yeah, it's become part of our modern lexicon. Because remember, it's a description of a thing, not necessarily where it's done. A tweet, it's more like a short social media statement or a message. And I understand why we keep saying ace, because it's part of our modern, like, how we converse about social media blurbs. You can call them blurbs or
Blurbs, yeah. I remember when Twitter first came out, and it was Conan who made a joke. It was like, don't flush Twitter down the... Yeah. And at the time I thought it was stupid, but then it is, okay, I can see the value here, but is it good, it's bad, is it bad, it's with us. It's just with us, whatever. But in any case, Musk and Trump were lowercase t tweeting at each other, and Trump threatened to say, the government's no longer going to fund the government could spend less money if they didn't fund you in XYZ way, and Musk's, you're in the Epstein files. Wow. So, more into it. This sort of conflict probably fascinated me more than it rightly should. I don't know, but some statements from Musk and Trump following the feud. Musk said, following or before, surrounding the feud. This is like when the news says, this comes after, for X happened in the past. The following things allegedly happened. Musk said the Trump bill spends too much. Musk being accused of not favoring the bill because it clears the federal EV mandate, later tweeted that he'd be fine if the mandate went away if the mountain of disgusting pork was cut out. Trump said Elon had been wearing thin when he was in the government and that Trump asked him to leave, and that then Trump took away the EV mandate, and that's when Musk went crazy. And on Thursday, that is Thursday, June 5th, Tesla's stock lost 14% in the day. And on that day, and you often see the daily gain or loss of a stock, but what you don't always see is like what happens the very next day, so I'll just read a little bit of that. On Friday, it regained 3%. So as of Friday, it was up 40% from its 52-week low, but down 75% from its 52-week high, which I think is just volatility city. There was a lot of interesting commentary on this, and for me, although confession time, I am excited to see what happens with no tax on tips, but the rest of it does seem very expensive, excessively so, to me, and tax cuts where you don't necessarily need them. Is it a good thing that the axis of conflict within the GOP is over, are we spending too much? Is this going to explode the deficit? It might be too much to hope that they get a handle on tax cuts, but do you think, as perhaps I do, that it's a good thing that they're saying maybe we are spending too much and the spending that they are talking about is a lot of it tax cuts?
No, so this is actually, it's all been bad since actually 2000. So the Clinton administration had a plan in place where here's what we're going to do. We've got the deficit down to not 100, nothing, pretty much. We did all these things to make sure that we were actually revenue neutral, if not positive. As in, we were running a surplus. We were getting more money than we were spending out. And so here's a plan for the next however many years to just keep paying down the debt and to not run a deficit at all. We figured out a way to do it. Let's do it. And then the Republicans immediately win the election and they go, nah, let's do huge sweeping tax cuts across the board for all these rich people. And then deficits ballooned again. And the whole issue, I think, right now, and why it's such a big problem, is that this is a self-inflicted problem, right? Run up the credit card of the government, spend as much money as they can, just huge, exorbitant sums of money, start a war, Start 2 wars. Spend a huge amount of money on those wars. Don't put the money that you're spending on the budget initially. Keep it separate. And then, oh, when the Democrats come to power, let's just put all that money all onto the books right then, right? And so all of a sudden it looks like there's no money. There's no money for anyone. We don't have any money. We can't spend any money. How can we spend money? To make the government look really bad so that when they lose power, they can run against the government looks really bad, right? And one way to do that is to just spend exorbitant sums of money and to impose huge tax cuts. If you get less money in and you spend more money out, at the end of the day, you still run a huge deficit. And no, it's not good. That is our debate. And it's not good, too, that the debates always come down to a government shutdown. Oh, we shouldn't lift the debt ceiling to keep paying down our debts. But if we don't lift the debt ceiling, then we're going to bankrupt the country and everybody's going to be really scared to invest in the country if the government says they're not going to pay their debts anymore. So we have to raise the debt ceiling. So it puts us always in these very artificially created impossible situations. You either lift the debt ceiling and the government can keep paying down the debt, or you don't, and then everything comes to a grinding halt, except for the essential things that we say we have to pay for, which magically we summon the money out of nowhere to pay for. We talked about this. We have a fiat currency. If we really got desperate, we would just pay it down, whatever the issue. At the end of the day, would it cause a global economic whatever? Sure, it would be bad. No question. But the alternative is significantly worse. And the alternative is the situation where the whole world just loses complete faith in the United States economy. Right now, the United States is the global reserve currency, so it has to be stable. Like, people have to believe in it because it drives so much of the economy, right? That was the whole fear when all those tariffs were put in place and the bond interest kept going up, is that people were offloading their bonds, and the fear was like, oh, people are losing their faith in the U.S. government. You want to see like a real dramatic situation? Have a country go bankrupt, like Argentina, I think for a while went bankrupt. That was dramatic. Or look at the countries that have had hyperinflation. I'm thinking Zimbabwe with their like 1 quintillion or whatever their denomination was, that went like way higher than the most, where you have people, or even the Weimar Republic, right? People with wheelbarrows full of cash that can't buy them a loaf of bread, right? It's like, okay,
went very badly.
Went super bad, right? Super badly, terrible. Yeah. So we don't want to have that. But here's the deal, right? I was curious about this. I was like, how bad is it really? Is it really that terrible? And I was looking at the GDP debt to ratio. So it's how much of our GDP is our debt. It's 120%.
Bad as Japan.
So I was about to go to that. There are two examples of where we could head if our debt to GDP ratio went a little too crazy, which is Japan, still a stable country, stable economy. The lights turn on, the trains run on time. They just had like 20 years of deflation or stagnation or whatever you want to call it, where their market didn't go up too much, didn't go down too much, it just stayed. So there's that, or there's Sudan. And I don't know if you've seen the news on Sudan for the last pick a year, but it's bad, right? The situation in Sudan has been bad, it's bad, continues to be bad. And so the question really becomes, which direction would the US head if our debt to GDP ratio keeps going up just wildly more than it is now? It's not pretty, right? The hard choices would have to be made, extreme austerity, but there are other ways around it. They could do a one-time tax on all wealth and assets, right, of all properties. It would suck. People would not like it. But Italy did that when Mussolini was in power. He had the Day of Gold, which was pretty much melt down all your gold and give it to the government.
A lot of countries did that in the 30s, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that would happen in the United States because our current environment is really divided and polarizing. But I'm thinking about World War II. They had war bonds, right? Like the situation grew really bad. And the country said, we don't have enough money to build all the things we need to build and to equip all the things we need to equip unless we have a serious effort made by the people of the country to chip in. And they did. They bought up a lot of war bonds and helped pay off the exorbitant costs of shifting all of our manufacturing from going to building refrigerators to tanks and boats and planes. right? Like it was pretty stunning that the transition, if you look at how long it was between what we were making to what we then started making and how fast it happened. But it happened, right? So it's not as if there's no options. It's just that all of the options are right now politically unpalatable. And I think part of the issue is that they make it seem more dramatic than it is. The government could always just keep raising the debt ceiling. So long as we have the ability for people to buy the debt, we have the ability to gain more debt. The only situation where it becomes a problem is if people stop buying the debt entirely. And the only time that would happen, as far as I can tell, is if we don't lift the debt ceiling. If we just stop paying the treasury bonds entirely, then there's panic. But right now, we're still fine. Everything's fine. This is just business as usual. But it's a game that they're playing. And so, of course, the situation's not good. It's terrible that the debates are always between extreme measures. Huge. Frankly, there shouldn't be any tax cuts if the argument's going to be that we don't have enough money or we're spending too much money. But the other extreme is what Doge did, which was just fire tens of thousands of people without warning. Just like, goodbye, here's the door. And that's not good either, right? Like, ultimately, government does things.
That's not an efficient use necessarily of money, of things that they do. Like, I saw this one Seattle Times article where this research project had been going on, and already they had spent like $100,000 on it, but they cut it for the efficiency, and there was like only less than $1,000 left in order to complete it. So that's not necessarily efficiency.
The one that gets to me still is all the food that was sitting in warehouses rotting, right? Like, they already bought the food. It's not like you can give the food back to the farmers. Here, have all this food.
Did they turn off the refrigerators for the government cheese?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't even know if they still have the cheese. I read...
They need the cheese!
Sure, I read an article once that there's just all these tons of cheese sitting in caves for some reason. It's like, why do we have all this cheese? But no, the point is that like we already spent the money. We're not getting it back. We're not going to the farmers and here, have your rotting food. Oh, and give us the money. Give us the money back that the millions of dollars we spent to buy the food from you. It's that's not that's not happening. And so the question becomes, what do you do with all this food? Is it just is it just going to get thrown away? Is that really in a world full of hunger and starving kids? Are we really going to throw away tens of thousands of tons of food? This is good food, right? This is USAID food. It's like nutritious NutriBiscuits or whatever you call it. They have this very specific formula of food that they make that's nutritious, and I don't know if it's delicious, but it's there. It's edible. It's for people to eat, for human consumption. It went through all the process.
Yeah, so you use the term game, and initially people were like, oh, it's not a game, it's my money. But in fact, a lot of the volatility we've seen lately, initially it was cryptocurrencies, but now just stocks, and we haven't got to asset prices like real estate yet, but maybe later. It has, in the last, we'll just say decade, maybe it's not quite a decade, demonstrated that a lot of this is, in a sense, again, we could say game theory. So I heard somewhere that there's 3 ways we're going to get out of this fiscal crisis, which you're right. It's not that, like, we don't have the biggest debt to GDP. Japan's got it worse. But sooner or later, if people are determined to keep giving tax cuts, let's put it that way, either, 1, we'll need a tax increase, 2...
We already got a tax increase, across the board tariffs. Boom, huge tax increase. That's a huge sales tax imposed on everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Anybody who wants to buy anything that's affected by the tariffs, sales tax. It happened. It's there.
Right, it did. 2, less government services. Or 3, and this is increasingly looking like the likely thing, would be the dollar gets devalued gradually, not in one fell swoop like of old. Not to say, like, in some kind of devastating way, but, like, the British pound used to be worth more compared to the other countries of the world, and now it's Still worth more per single unit, but it's gone down since the 1960s. So something like that. Now you might say, if it happens gradually, big deal. And yeah, there are worse things that have happened. What I don't like is, what about cautious people? What about cautious people who invested in government bonds? I wish we had a system that rewarded the cautious, that rewarded the diligent. And it's like a game in terms of the system is a system where people make the rules and where collective action combines to make the rules. So what I fear is that we're moving more and more toward a system that favors blind luck or bluster or pump and dump schemes. Or we're going to do one investing in like big data, and then the next buzzword comes up and we're going to do that. And then people will forget about it because memory's short. And what about rewarding the cautious? It's punishing the cautious that I don't like about this.
With the tariffs and with the haphazard way that different federal funding is being snatched away from various stakeholders, right now the system looks like it's rewarding the loyal. It's transitioning from a more egalitarian merit-based system where you have competitive grants and loans that you apply for. I'm thinking the NSF, the NIH, the colleges and the universities, where you had to write a grant, you had to apply for that grant, somebody had to review the grant application. It was a competitive process. Not everybody who applied would get one. And that system is transitioning right now, at least, away from that to, if you raise the ire of the Trump administration, they will punish you. And it's scorched earth punishment. It's like financial Armageddon. So for Harvard, the efforts are take away all the federal funding and ban all international students. So that's a quarter of their student body and a huge source of their immediate revenue, right? Their tuition from the international students. And then it's an end run for their other revenue, which is all those federal grants and loans. Will Harvard weather the storm? Absolutely. They're wealthy. They've got a huge endowment. But is it really devastating anyways? Yes, because it's a huge hit to their prestige, to their reputation, right? Nobody wants to back a loser. And right now it looks like Harvard's losing, right? Because their biggest sell was, look, we're a very prestigious, very exclusive university that only lets in far fewer people than we who apply. And out of that exclusivity, we get all these really high value grants and loans and federal funding that demonstrates the success of our endeavors, right? And that's, I think, what's missing in this conversation for Harvard is that it's not that they need the money, right? It's that getting the grants or getting conferred those research funds is viewed as like a step on the ladder of an academic researcher. Of you can put that little asterisk or star on your resume of I got an NIH grant or I got an NSF grant or I got a grant from NASA, or that this very competitive peer-reviewed process demonstrated that I am among the best of the best. And that's one of the ways that society can signify value and prestige and success, right? So that's something that's lost in the mix. But as to the question of the way our economy is going, it doesn't look like it's going in a predictable way at all. It looks completely haphazard and unpredictable. Because look, Elon Musk spent an exorbitant amount of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, to get Trump elected, and he's on the outs with the president. What does that say for the rest of us? If more money than most of us will make in a lifetime is spent on him, and now he's threatening to really wreck Musk's business model of the EV mandates and threatening to take away the grants for various things. What does that say?
Is it money well spent? That's the question.
That for Trump, even money wasn't enough, right? That you have to have unquestioning loyalty to the God King. It reminds me of the Greek gods, right? Have you ever seen the stories of the Greek gods of if you stop praying to the gods, they smite you, or they turn you into a bird or a pig, or they send you down to Hades, or they tie you to a cliff and have a bird peck out your intestines every day because you deign to steal fire. That's what it reminds me of. It's like, how do you win in this situation? Right, like, where's the normalcy? You either feed the money machine and also lavish just like incredible praise. You're so smart. You're so wise. You're so good. You're so attractive. You're the best. You're the tallest. You're the most athletic. You eat the best, right? You wear the best clothes. You got the biggest ties, right? You just have to shower him with just so much effusive praise. And the question is, what's the limit? When's enough? When can you just do the business of making money and figuring out a way to make money and then making money, right? I'm really struggling to see what's the line. Because if like Elon Musk was like the bar, that because as far as I see it, he was at least for the past election cycle the bar. He spent the most money and he used the largest amount of resources with his use of Twitter or of X, of his social media platform, to completely amplify Trump's message, right? To make it so that Trump was heard pretty much by everyone, and anyone who didn't already know his name, they knew his name, they knew what he. There just wasn't enough money, and specifically the amplifying of the Harris message. Because if you had a point on election day where people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? Then clearly there was a really bad job done of making sure everybody knew that Kamala Harris was the candidate, right? There was a really bad job done. And the question is why? It's because the ways to really amplify the message, the news, the media, radio, TV, social media, clearly they picked a candidate they wanted to back. It wasn't Harris, right? They picked Trump. Because you remember the inauguration and all those people lined up behind him. Once he spent millions of dollars to help fund the inauguration.
Yeah, that was surreal.
Ahead of everybody else, right behind him, all the tech.
And it wasn't on the usual podium. It was inside the Capitol dome because of how cold it was. Yeah.
Think of how even more exclusive and prestigious it was, right? Because it was a limited space available. So who was chosen and where they were chosen to be sent a very strong message of who was valued the most, right, leading up to the win. The whole point I'm making here is that system, the way that it's set up with these tariffs, it's 100% like a favor economy because the exclusions to those tariffs, the gift of a reprieve from those taxes, can be given ad infinitum, right? It's at the full discretion of the president, and what can be given can be taken away, right? Specifically, we're talking about Musk here, right? All these advantages and benefits and all that stuff that has made him the richest man in the world can also be, because if you look at his business model, a lot of it relies on government contracts and these tax mandates and these rebates. It's a really big aspect of how he makes money is getting money from governments to do things, to build spaceships, to build cars, to do internet, right? There's a whole list of things that are provided. And and it's so bizarre, right? Because the Tesla story is bizarre in the sense that Tesla's shares were going down because Musk supported Trump. Now Tesla's shares are going down because Musk is on the outs with Trump.
Yeah, it nukes the efficient market hypothesis right there.
It's super weird because I think there was some element of people who were propping up, even though it was like bleeding money, it was going down. But like he still got this connection with the president. He still got these supports, and the president's got his back. So it's not a complete Tesla's not a complete loss. But now, like, what's there? I'm trying to think of the damned if you do, damned if you don't. The damage is already done from supporting Trump and doing that weird salute and just the terrible visuals, and the PR was just awful for Musk with all the different things that he's done in these first few months of the Trump administration. Like that damage is baked in now to Tesla. I don't know if that's ever going away. Like people don't like Musk, period. And there's more damage being incurred now that he's on the outs. Who is advising him on his PR that like just fade into the midst of money making and stop being so. You don't see other CEOs going out there like saying completely garrulous and combative stuff to the president because the president still has the bully pulpit. He can just talk every day and people listen because he's the president. And so if you annoy the president and you say mean things to the president, okay, game on. I'm gonna start saying like all the mean things. And I don't get it. He doesn't seem like he's going to win either way. You're not going to win back the people who jumped ship from Tesla because of what Musk did supporting Trump. And you're not going to win any of the Trump supporters
Exactly, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if part of something going on in the back of his mind was if I battle Trump some degree, maybe I'll get some of the people on the left back because I need people to buy my cars. But in reality, it would seem that it's better to take one side or the other.
Oh no, that cake has been baked and delivered, right, to the population. They've been eating that sadness for a while,
Mhm.
right? The only thing from here until the end of the Trump administration in 4 years and to the next one of whoever gets elected is mitigating the damage that is already there and not causing more harm. And I don't know. I'm very confused with what's going on. Like,
Hmm.
wonder if he has advisors or if he just fired like all the PR people.
Yeah, he doged him. He doged him.
Like he's rich enough that he could hire a team to just finesse his image all the time, just make him look like the greatest and most amazing, smartest guy ever, who's wealthy beyond compare and who can do good works, do no harm. But no, it's very strange. Like maybe it's this mentality of I alone can do everything, but no, you have money. Spend the money on people whose jobs are figuring out how to make you look better. Celebrities have publicists, right? Actors and famous people. They have all sorts of like social media ingenues and strategies to figure out a way to elevate their image and to mitigate any negative harms to their image in the tabloids and all that. There's got
Yeah.
to be someone telling him like, don't do this. Stop picking these unnecessary Twitter feuds with the most powerful person on the planet. Just don't do it. Just drift off into time.
Picture this: expanding the borrowing capacity of the United States by what is it funded by? How do they fund the government? Pop quiz. Bonds, yes, treasuries. So, how about this? If individual American people could buy treasuries, let's say long-term treasuries, and if they then did not sell them but held them the entire time, they got an extra percentage yield. Maybe that would, people would be like, oh, I'm going to hold it, and therefore get the extra percentage yield. And it would be like a U.S. government. Like 1% is not terribly much, especially if it would then expand the available number of dollars for that, because I want to reward the cautious. So if you don't sell it, you get an extra percentage yield. You get the balloon payment to you at the end of it. But you can't, but we don't want the rich taking advantage of this too much. So it's like up to, you can do this in a value of treasuries up to like 100,000 per person that you can hold at any given time. How about that? You think that might help? All right, there we go.
We
did it.
They have a lot of tools. They can be very creative if they really want to. I mean, they could do any number of things that I don't see them doing, but they could. So, for instance, for national lands, they could develop them into rental properties and everybody could pay like an initial payment or a bond or something to get a return from the rents on those properties. And if it was like a fixed rent that the government had forever, then you could buy, because they do this sort of with municipal bonds where you can buy a municipal bond and the return's really good, it's really high. If they could do something like that where you can get investment properties or investment incomes that are backed by the full faith and credit of the US government that aren't bonds, but are something like a stock in a rental apartment or something, there's strategies that exist, they're just not using them. And the thing the government has an awful lot of is land, is just
Yeah.
stuff. And frankly, that land isn't being used to its full effect. I understand why. There's this like philosophical notion of conservation, the environment, et cetera, et cetera. I get it. But the country suffers. It really suffers when we have this huge debt and these huge deficits, and there are tools available to us to address those. People want to come to the United States. They want to live here. The only reason that huge numbers of people aren't allowed to come to the United States and aren't allowed to live here is because of political reasons. There's space. I don't know if you've driven across the US before. There's a lot of space. It's
Hmm.
vast tracts of just like empty land.
Yeah, even in rural Maryland, where there's been modern settlement for hundreds of years, they got huge tracts of farmland. I don't think we're anywhere near the Malthusian limit.
Sure. And frankly, there are countries that are much smaller than the US and have a lot
Exactly.
more people, and they're managing.
Yeah, per mile.
It's all a choice, right? It's all a philosophical. This saga isn't over, right? It's going to obviously go on for the next however many years. I think Musk is going to win it because he has more money, and he's got the apparatus of social media to always have his word heard more than others. But it's not going to be, I don't see an upside to this disagreement they're having, right? It's going to affect the future of space travel in particular, which is very sad. I think the right impetus, the right motivation for the future in terms of progress is commercial space development, since the government's backed away from that with the shuttle program. Like, we need someone like Musk or Bezos or the Virgin Mobile guy. I'm trying to remember. Hanson? No, not Hanson. I don't remember his name, but that guy.
Richard Branson.
Hanson, there you go. Who has that spaceport. You need people like that to be investing these technologies, but they need government support because of the infrastructure that's required. And so it doesn't bode well if a fickle president can just take away all the funding and support that was put in place for space development. Yeah, that's my final word there is we need structured support for space technology, and it's not good that it can just go away at the whims of a annoyed president.
We'll see you next week here on Mondays with Mike.